Walter White never wanted money. He never wanted fear or power or a kingdom built out of blue crystal. What he actually wanted was much smaller and much more dangerous. He wanted to never feel invisible again. And that one decision, to never feel small again, is what destroyed his marriage, killed people who loved him, and turned a high school chemistry teacher into the most feared man in New Mexico. If you've ever felt overlooked at work, if you've ever watched less competent people get rewarded while you stayed quiet and did the right thing, this video is not really about a TV show. It's about you. Stay until lesson number 4, because it's the one almost nobody talks about, and it might explain a decision you're about to make in real life right now.
Hey, welcome back to Hidden Lens, the channel that takes stories you already love and pulls out the parts you missed the first time. If you're new here, this is a good place to hit subscribe, because we do this every week, and the next breakdown is going to hit just as hard as this one. Now, 6 secrets hiding inside Breaking Bad. Let's start with the most painful one.
Here's something most people miss about Walter White. The cancer diagnosis isn't really what changes him. It's the excuse. The real fuel had been sitting in him for over 20 years, quietly building interest like a debt nobody pays off. Think about his backstory for a second. He co-founded a company that became worth billions. He sold his share for almost nothing. He watched a former partner build an empire from research Walter helped create, while Walter spent 2 decades teaching teenagers who didn't respect him, in a job that didn't pay him what he believed he was worth. That's not a midlife crisis. That's a slow-burning resentment, fed every single day for years, with nowhere to go. And here's the part that applies directly to your life, right now, today. Unspoken resentment doesn't vanish just because you stay quiet about it. It doesn't evaporate because you're being mature or professional or the bigger person. It compounds, silently, like interest on a debt you never agreed to pay. And one day it cashes itself out, usually at the worst possible moment in the worst possible way, because you never gave it a healthy outlet.
Walter didn't become dangerous because he started cooking methamphetamine. He became dangerous the moment he decided his hidden anger was more important than the people who loved him. The lesson isn't don't have ambition. The lesson is, if you swallow your resentment for years, instead of dealing with it honestly, it will eventually choose its own outlet, and it will not ask your permission, and it will not be gentle about it. Ask yourself something uncomfortable for a second. What version of cooking meth are you quietly building in your own life? The version where unspoken anger slowly reroutes your choices without you even noticing. Drop a comment with one word, Walter, if you felt that slow burn before. It helps more than you think. And it helps this video reach more people who need to hear it.
Now let's talk about Jesse. Out of every character in this show, Jesse Pinkman is told the most lies about himself, and almost all of them by people who are supposed to protect him. His parents call him a failure long before he does anything to prove them right. Walter, again and again, tells him he's worthless, that he's nothing without him, that he'll never amount to anything on his own. And here's the brutal part. Jesse starts to believe it. Not because it's true, because it's repeated. There's a quiet kind of psychology here that applies far beyond a TV show. People don't just become what they're born as. They become what they're repeatedly told they are, especially by the people whose opinion they value most. If you're constantly surrounded by people who describe you as the screw-up, the disappointment, the one who always does this, some part of you will eventually start performing that role, even if you know it's unfair. Not because you're weak,
because the human brain is wired to make itself consistent with the story it keeps hearing about itself.
The flip side is just as real, and it's the part of this lesson most people skip past. Jesse's best moments, protecting children, trying to get clean, trying to build something honest, almost always happen around the rare people who treat him like he's capable of more. That's not a coincidence. That's the same mechanism running in the opposite direction. So here's the practical takeaway. Pay close attention to the 5 people who talk to you the most. Not the people you admire from a distance, the people who actually have your ear every single day. Because whether you notice it or not, you are slowly turning into the story they keep telling about you.
Quiet commitment is everything. Mike has a rule, and he repeats a version of it more than once across the series. Half measures get people killed. If you're going to commit to something, commit completely. Because doing something halfway, out of fear or guilt or hesitation, is often more dangerous than not doing it at all. Think about how often this shows up in real life, far away from anything criminal. Someone half quits a toxic relationship, staying enough to keep getting hurt, leaving enough to never get healed. Someone half starts a business, quitting their job emotionally, but never actually building the discipline to make the new thing work. Someone half apologizes, saying sorry, but never actually changing the behavior that required the apology in the first place.
Half measures don't protect you from risk. They just stretch the same risk out over a much longer, much more painful timeline. Mike's entire arc, a man who survived as a corrupt cop, a cleaner, a fixer longer than almost anyone else in this world, comes from one discipline. When he commits fully. And when he walks away completely. No middle ground. No, let's see how this goes. That's lesson 3. And it's one of the most quietly useful pieces of advice the entire series has to offer. Ambiguity is exhausting. And it rarely protects you. Decide fully, one way or the other.
Now, here's the one I told you about at the start. The lesson almost nobody talks about. Gus Fring is, without question, one of the calmest characters ever written for television. He delivers devastating news in the same tone he'd use to order coffee. He absorbs threats, insults, even direct danger to his life without his expression changing. And here's the part that matters. That calm is not the absence of emotion. It's the complete mastery of it.
Watch closely throughout the series, and you'll notice something most viewers feel but don't consciously register. Every single time tension rises in a scene with Gus, he becomes more still, not less. While everyone around him reacts, raises their voice, makes a mistake out of panic, Gus simply slows down. This is the actual hidden secret. In almost every high-stakes negotiation, conflict, or confrontation, the person who keeps their face and their voice the most controlled is the one who ends up holding the power in the room, regardless of who started the conversation with more leverage. Not because calmness is a magic trick, because panic leaks information. Every flinch, every raised voice, every nervous laugh tells the other person exactly where your fear is. And fear is the one thing a skilled opponent will always exploit first.
This applies to a hard conversation with your boss, a conflict with your partner, a negotiation over money. The version of you that keeps speaking slowly, keeps their voice low, and refuses to let their face give anything away, that version of you is,
almost every single time, the version of you that walks out of the room with more power than they walked in with. That's the secret behind Gus Fring, and it's one you can actually practice this week. Try it in your very next disagreement. Slow your voice down by 20% and watch what happens to the entire dynamic of the conversation.
Lesson 5 is the one people argue about the most online. And that's exactly why it matters. Skyler White spends a huge portion of the story discovering the truth in pieces, and then for a long stretch, choosing to stay quiet about what she knows. Fans debate endlessly about whether that makes her complicit, but step back from the show for a second, because the actual lesson here isn't about her morality. It's about a trap that exists in real relationships, real workplaces, real families, all the time. Silence feels safe in the moment. It feels like neutrality, like you haven't actually chosen anything yet. But silence is never actually neutral. Every day you stay quiet about something you know is wrong, you are making a decision. The decision to let it continue. The show makes this almost unbearably clear. The longer Skyler waits to act, the more entangled she becomes in consequences she never personally chose, simply because waiting itself became its own kind of choice.
This is one of the most underrated truths about ethical pressure in real life. Most people don't get trapped by one big, terrible decision. They get trapped by 100 small days of staying silent, each one feeling slightly more justified than the last. Because I already waited this long, so what difference does one more day make? That sentence, "What difference does one more day make?" is one of the most dangerous sentences a person can say to themselves. In a marriage, in a job, in a friendship, in anything. If something has been bothering you for weeks and you've been telling yourself you'll deal with it eventually, this is the moment to actually ask yourself how many more days of silence you're willing to let pass before silence becomes its own answer.
Lesson 6, and this one's a little more hopeful than the others. Saul Goodman, or rather Jimmy McGill, is, underneath all the jokes and the flashy suits, possibly the single most adaptable character in the entire story. He starts as a con artist, becomes a struggling lawyer, gets pushed out of a respectable career through no real fault of his own, reinvents himself completely, and keeps surviving no matter how many times the ground shifts under him.
Most people treat reinvention like it's a personality trait. Like some people are just naturally the type who can start over, and some people simply aren't. But watch Jimmy closely, and you'll notice that's not actually what's happening. Reinvention, for him, is closer to a practiced skill. Read the new environment quickly, drop the identity that no longer serves you, build a new one out of whatever's actually available, and keep moving before grief about the old version has time to set in. That's genuinely useful, because it means reinvention isn't reserved for naturally fearless people. It's a skill that gets stronger every time you actually use it, the same way a muscle does. The first reinvention is always the hardest. The fifth one is almost casual. So if you're sitting on a version of your life that no longer fits, a job, a relationship, an identity you've outgrown, the real obstacle usually isn't ability. It's the amount of grief you're allowing yourself to feel about letting the old version go.
Here's what ties all 6 of these together, and it's the real reason this show has stayed this powerful for over a decade. Breaking Bad is often described as a story about a good man who slowly turns evil. But that's not quite right, and it's the most important correction in this entire video. Walter White was never simply good. The danger was always there, sitting quietly under the surface, waiting for permission. The story isn't about creation, it's about revelation. Circumstances didn't make him dangerous. They simply removed the lid that had been holding it down for 20 years.
And that's the uncomfortable truth the show is really trying to tell you. Pressure doesn't change who you are. It reveals who you already were, underneath the version of yourself that polite society allowed you to show. The real question worth sitting with isn't what would I do if everything fell apart? It's what's already sitting quietly underneath me, right now, waiting for the right pressure to show itself.
If even one of these 6 hit you a little harder than you expected, that's exactly why this channel exists. Hidden Lens isn't here to just retell stories you already know. It's here to pull the psychology out of them and hand it back to you in a way you can actually use this week. So here's how you help this video, and help yourself at the same time. Hit that like button right now. It takes 1 second, and it's genuinely the single biggest thing that tells YouTube to put this in front of more people who need to hear it. If you haven't subscribed yet, this is the moment. Because we break down a different story like this every single week, and you really don't want to miss the next one.
And I want to hear from you directly. In the comments, tell me which of these 6 lessons hit closest to home. Was it Walter's resentment, Jesse's self-image, Mike's half measures, Gus's control, Skyler's silence, or Saul's reinvention? I read every single comment on these videos, and honestly, some of the best insights on this channel have come directly from you, not from me.
And if you want to keep going down this rabbit hole, we've already done this exact kind of breakdown on other shows that hide far more psychology than people realize. Full videos sitting right here on Hidden Lens, just waiting for you to press play next. Because the truth is, every story you love is quietly trying to tell you something about yourself. Most people just watch it. We're here to help you actually see it. I'll see you in the next one.